The thing that I'm not confused about here is something called inflammatory rhetoric. Phrases like jackbooted thugs, jackbooted locksteppers are nothing more than inflammatory rhetoric. They're used to gin up the emotions of the people. When I hear inflammatory rhetoric, I think of the last line in the famous soliloquy from Macbeth, when Macbeth discusses his definition of life. He said, "It is a tale full of sound and fury, yet signifying nothing." Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor.
I will give the police report. August 1st to August 31st. Crimes reported 9. 1 theft, 1 harassment, 1 burglary, 1 fraud, 1 public drunkenness, and 4 assaults. There were 98 calls for service. 8 were domestic. The most prevalent, 8 domestic, non-medical emergencies, 13 assists, and 8 public service calls. There were 5 automobile accidents, 6 motor vehicle stops, and 2 traffic citations. And while we're on the matter of criminal activity, over the weekend, somebody stole my Donald Trump signs off my front lawn. I'm sorry? Okay. Now, these were targeted, and I'll tell you how I know they were targeted. Because along with my Donald Trump signs, I have 2 signs supporting Dasha Pruitt, and I have 2 signs supporting Tom Killian. Yet, those signs weren't disturbed, which I think is pretty stupid, because if you're going to steal signs, steal everybody's sign, not just Donald Trump's, because it's obvious that these signs were targeted. Now, I noticed that my good friend, Councilman Swaggart over there, has a Joe Biden sign on his front lawn. I would be just as outraged if somebody came onto his property and took that Joe Biden sign, simply because Councilman Swaggart's Joe Biden sign and my Donald Trump sign are our individual ways of expressing our rights under the First Amendment. So whoever walked on my property and took my signs, if the same person walked on Councilman Swaggart's property and took his signs, they would be violating our rights under the First Amendment. On top of that, it's criminal. And I will tell you, right here and now, I don't care if the police find the people who did it. I don't care whether they're juveniles. I don't care whether they're teenagers. I don't care whether they're young adults. I don't care whether they're senior citizens. An apology will not work for me. I will file criminal charges, just like I hope Councilman Swaggart would do the same thing if somebody interloped onto his property. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. This is a free country. People are allowed to express their opinion. People have a right not to have their property violated. It's got to stop. And I have asked the chief to enforce the laws as far as theft, if any more signs are stolen, and if the actors are caught. Thank you, Madam President.
I don't think anybody will disagree with you, Mayor. It's ridiculous. Anybody have any questions for the mayor? Moving on to public safety, Councilman Capabianco.
Thank you, Madam President. For public safety, all police vehicles have undergone their general maintenance for the month. For code enforcement, I'll report general progress. And if you will allow me to move on to public works.
Please.
As last month, as I stated, there's a light out on Norfolk and West Rowan. Lanai is getting all of the material to replace that with an LED light. And our Brian Cornog is looking into the bed for the truck. So I think he's going to be doing this next year instead of this year.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Any questions for the councilman? Moving on to ordinance, Councilman Schwager.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 563, which is the change in solicitation fees for ice cream and water ice trucks.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved.
I was asked to bring up a resolution. Council should have in front of them Resolution 1826. This is to formally describe the job duties and minimum qualifications for the Office of Code Enforcement Officer.
Second.
Any questions on the motion?
Yes, I have lots of questions about this motion.
Well, let's cut it to the chase and one at a time.
Okay. So where did this motion come from?
At the beginning of the year, I had spoken with several employees concerning job descriptions that were not in the form of a resolution. I spoke with Councilman Capabianco at the beginning of the new year, asking him to rough out a resolution. And unfortunately, with all the confusion and the new business of the year, it fell through the cracks.
Okay, and then, so, Mr. Capabianco, this is Mr. Capabianco's position as code enforcement officer
No, this is a job description
of,
that in future, for the code official, in a form of a resolution.
okay,
And if you read the actual resolution, you will see special reference to their actual experience, knowledge, specialized training, and education with respect to the duties of their office set forth in a job description with minimum qualifications of the position. It does not specify a name of Mr. Capabianco. It's a job description for future councils to use for their guidance.
okay. So this is not applicable to the current employee? Like, we're not trying to hire somebody, are we?
We are not.
Okay.
As far as I know, Mr. Capabianco, in his position as code officer, is not leaving unless he has an intent that I don't know about.
Okay. Now, what do you call it? The resolution and the job description seem fine to me.
Okay, are we ready to vote, or are you done with your questions?
The qualifications seem higher than necessary, and I searched for the position of code enforcement officer and found a number of postings from boroughs all over the state of Pennsylvania for the same position. And none of those required a college degree. None of them required to be a notary, and I'm really kind of wondering why you need to be a notary to be a council position, to be a code enforcement officer. And so those kinds of things seem, and what is not mentioned in terms of qualifications are the codes that have to be enforced.
Well, let me say that some places in western Pennsylvania, as you know, some of the smaller municipalities were the last one to adopt the UCC because they had their own building codes. So you cannot compare apples to oranges when you're looking at western Pennsylvania or even mid-state compared to some of the municipalities on this end of the state. And to be able to have a notary is an asset to any municipality when it comes to notarizing specific forms such as a contractor's affidavit.
And sorry for that, and doing the temporary use and occupancy.
And the temporary
and conditional,
UNOs.
you gotta have that. I got everything that's listed there, everything.
And this is a guideline for the future of job descriptions for our borough. We don't compare our borough with Springfield Township. We don't compare it to Allegheny County and any of the municipalities on the western or mid-state. It's strictly a job description for future councils to be guided by.
And the MOPEC number is so you can go to the courts and write citations. They give you a number, like they give the police a number. So they can go to the court and write citations.
And do you need to have this number before hiring, or can it be gotten
This is
after
all
hiring?
this is all the qualifications. Why, you looking for this job?
No, not at all, but I mean, there are many times that you hire a person
Yeah.
who
Who's on
then,
the job training.
yeah,
Yeah.
who then earns certifications and qualifications as you go.
Well, I would certainly hope that any code officer in any municipality would have knowledge of the UCC and the BOCA codes. I mean, those are the codes that we enforce here, and I hope through accreditation that they would have that kind of knowledge. But again, this is strictly a guideline on a job description for future councils to be guided by. As you know, resolution is on the floor. Are you finished with your questions, so we may move on to a vote?
I think the college degree is excessive for a part-time position.
Okay, then when it comes to a vote, you may vote no.
Okay, well, can I make a motion to remove the
We
college
have-
degree?
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second to adopt Resolution 1826. Mrs. Higgins, would you do a roll call vote on that?
Councilman Sidlow.
No.
Councilwoman Guy.
No.
Councilman Swiger.
Yes.
Councilman Long.
Yes.
Councilman Capabianco.
Yes.
Councilman Bull.
Yes.
President Percival.
Yes,
Yes, have it.
thank you. Councilman Sidlow, in the future, if you want to bring it back up and change the resolution down the road, please feel free to do so with consultation with the ordinance committee and our solicitor. Moving on, Councilman Schwager, do you have anything else?
Just a question clarifying what you stated earlier. So we will be doing similar resolutions for other positions within the borough?
Yes, I've tried to look at the ones that we have right after the new year, to
Okay.
see if we had job descriptions on specific things. Finding that we had none for the code officer prompted me to look into that. Unfortunately, and I will apologize again, that slipped through the cracks.
Okay. Other than that, general progress for ordinances.
Any questions for the councilman? License and inspections, Councilman Long.
Thank you, Madam President. For building, we have residential's 8, commercial 0, plumbing, residential 7, commercial 0, mechanical, residential 0, commercial 0, electrical, residential 0, commercial 0, use and occupancy, inspections were completed were 2, re-inspections completed 0, street opening permits issued 0. That's all.
Any questions for Councilman Long? Moving on to emergency management, Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm happy to report general progress on the emergency management report, the fire marshal report, and the health inspector report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to finances, Vice President Bull.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? So moved.
Madam President, I would just like to report that the budget meeting was productive, and thank you everyone for their attendance. The next budget meeting will be October 12th. If all of council could be in attendance, that would be fantastic. And with that, I will report general progress. Moving along to the woodlot project, I will have to report general progress because the 3 times I tried to walk down to the woodlot came off. So I can defer to the engineer and apologize for not taking my normal walk and checking out the woodlot.
Thank you. Any questions for Vice President? Councilman Schwager, I'm guessing you have no report?
No report for recreation, unfortunately.
Okay. Moving on. Mrs. Guy, you were in charge of the recycling MS4 committee. After this evening, you will be counsel at large pending notification from the state, the governor, and the senators, the Senate, as to your resignation or termination from your position as elected official. Do you have a report for this evening?
We have 10.94 tons of recycling. I haven't had any luck trying to figure out where to put our leaves. I'm now starting to reach out to some of the smaller landscaping companies, see if any of them have some place to put 25 tons of leaves. But shutting down where we used to put it jammed up pretty much every borough. So that's all I got.
Councilman Capabianco,
Yes.
since you were in charge of streets, I'm going to ask you if you would not mind taking over the recycling report, and
That's fine.
we would have to work on leaves for.
That's fine.
Our roadmaster may have some ideas on that. Did Mr.,
Best thing to do with leaves is to mulch them.
did,
Just run your lawnmower over the leaves and mulch them in the grass. That's the best thing to do. That's what we should recommend to the community.
Mrs. Higgins, did a tax collector leave anything for this evening?
Yes, he did. He has received to date a total of $885,022.73. Excuse me, there was a total revenue of $3,829.73 in deposits from August
all you
9th
need
to
to.
September 9th. And that's it.
It's easier than breaking.
At this time, we'll ask the engineer if she has a report. Ms. Catania?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a report. First, I'd like to advise that we have a final invoice for Ernell Construction for the Woodlot project. It's in the amount of $27,045, and happily, that goes to the county for payment and not for this borough.
You bet.
That was a community development block grant. The second thing, residents should be aware that AF Damon will be starting our resurfacing project. They'll be in Brookhaven from Wednesday, we think till Friday. This is all weather pending, and then they'll come right from Brookhaven to Parkside. So we're expecting that within 2 weeks we'll have the roads paved. Any citizens, any residents will be given notification from AF Damon 2 nights before. I ask that no one park in their driveway, in particular the day they are going to pave, because you will not be able to get out of your driveway. If they're milling, which is just taking the road down, you will be able to get in and out of your driveway, but you will not be able to get out once they start paving. Number one reason is that unfortunately, if you go onto that paving, then they need to come back and refinish it. Secondly, if you do that, you're going to have marks in your driveway because the asphalt actually sticks on your tires. So you don't want to walk in that. You don't want to drive in that. The third thing that I'd like to mention is that we are getting to that time of year again that we're going to be getting notification from the county concerning community development block grants. There are projects that I believe that we can still look to do. You are not eligible at this point for any construction projects. The reason that we're doing the lighting project towards the edge of Chester City is because we were eligible in that area utilizing some of the streets in Chester City to qualify. There are a lot of projects that you can do as far as planning projects, possibly looking at ways to upgrade, further upgrade the avenue, maybe finding some parking areas, doing a parking study. One of the things that I think would certainly assist this borough and your business district is some on-street parking. So taking a look at what viable options you may have may be helpful in the long run to some economic development and some new, better businesses so that we have a more walkable community. You're able to go and get your services right here in the borough. So I'm just going to mention that one because that's the one that first came to my mind. Anybody that has any suggestions, I typically put out a list for the November meeting, and then we'll have our hearing in December. The grants are typically due in January. That being said, in talking about grants, there is the potential of doing a PICO Green Region grant. It is due the end of October. My thought would be that we take a look at that for some additional funding for the West Cole Memorial. We tried to do that last year. We weren't successful. So my thought would be for me to contact the administrator for that, see how we can strengthen that grant application so that we can move forward with that. Otherwise, we might look at something having to do, for example, the sign for the woodlot. However, I don't know when they'll decide, and it may put us off for another season before we would have that particular signage. So just some things to think about. If council's interested, we do have a resolution that will have to take place next month.
Lisa, can you prepare that resolution or give Linda some guidance so we can apply for the Green Region grant for the West Cole Memorial to continue that?
I can do so.
Free money is always good. So we try to get as many grants as we can to do these projects to save the taxpayer dollars.
And that's all I have unless anyone has any questions.
I have one question. The abandoned gas station would be a building project, but perhaps it's in enough of a distressed zone that maybe we could get to build onto the Leslie Cole Pocket Park or some of that on-street parking that we were talking about. I mean, it's frontage, but it's not ideal frontage.
Well, I think it has been purchased, and they're in litigation with the prior owner. As far as I know, and Nick, I don't know if you've heard anything different, they're in litigation because of the underground contamination.
I remember hearing that, and that's why it truly was a question.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think we have to be very careful of is determining that there is a specific area. What a parking study does is take a look at what your needs are, how you improve. I mean, your goal would be to improve the business district, to give people that are traveling through the opportunity to be able to park. It may actually give you the opportunity to rid yourselves of some of the on-street parking on Edgemont Avenue, which I know is a big issue as far as safety is concerned, and put it elsewhere. It could be an area where it's in a judicial sale. I'm just thinking out loud, but there are specific areas that you can take a look at. The borough can typically get anything on it. Is it judicial sale or the sheriff's sale,
Sheriff's sale?
Jay? Which one's the last one?
Judicial sale.
Judicial sale. They offer the property to the borough for $1. Now, you lose that revenue from taxes, but you may gain in putting, for example, parking meters, or even some kind of a parking permit, so that at night you'd have people that would be able to park there. So there's all kinds of alternatives, but that's what the study would do.
Okay.
So I think versus looking at just one spot, we ought to look through the whole borough and see if there's something that could be done.
Yeah, I agree.
Who performs a traffic study?
I do not.
Who does that?
That would be, there's actually consultants out there that specialize in parking studies, that type of a study. I don't have that expertise to be able to do it. I have sat on several task forces. As a matter of fact, I sat on one for the Market Street Gateway that was solely a parking study up in Upper Darby and Milbourne Borough. So, it's out there. I think that we ought to start looking to the future and how do we keep our community viable, walkable, there's a lot of things that I think we could do from a planning standpoint.
I agree. Any questions for the engineer before we move on? Going on to the solicitor's report, Mr. Wills?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just have one issue to report this evening. That concerns the property at 2810 Edgemont Avenue. If council recalls, earlier this year, we had multiple issues with this property. Basically, the tenant who was residing in the property was then subleasing the property through Airbnb, where we ended up getting multiple tenants in this property each and every night. That, of course, is a violation of multiple ordinances in our Code of Ordinances, and the property owner was in fact cited. The property owner has seen fit to plead not guilty, and therefore there is a hearing scheduled with the court next Friday, October 2nd. I will be representing the borough's best interest as well as the code enforcement officer at that particular hearing. Other than that, I can report general progress.
Thank you. Any questions on that for the solicitor? If not, we're going to move on to